Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to take a look at an interesting deck I've been working on, which is Lillie's Clefairy with Iron Valiant EX. This is a build that didn't really come up into my head, I'll be honest, and the main reason I'm doing this deck is because, well, the old Entei Valiant deck popped up in my recommendations for some reason. But well, I thought, well, we have Clefairy, which does hit a relevant weakness against dragons, and obviously does hit against fighting types as well. So, why not give it a try? So as per usual, in the description below, there's going to be usual links, double the deck list, which is also available to copy in the description below. There's the games that we'll play, and of course the outro and what I think of the deck. So of course, we are going to be focusing on the Lillie's Clefairy primarily as our attacker. Now, unlike the days of Entei Valiant, we don't have a stadium that does it. But we do have Wondrous Patch, which is just as good. And of course, Fairy Zone makes it so that our opponent's Dragon-type Pokemon in play is now Psychic Pokemon, well, Psychic weakness. And of course, the weakness is applied as ×2. Then of course, Full Moon Rondo does stack pretty hard and can do a lot of work against the Dragon types, but also just if we have our opponent with a large bench or we have a decent bench. Obviously, we're not playing Area Zero, that just doesn't feel right to me. But the fact that we have this attack, plus 2 technically relevant weaknesses, is actually pretty good. Obviously, Clefairy will struggle against the likes of Mega Tankaskhan, but let's be real, most decks that aren't packing fighting weakness tend to struggle against that deck. So obviously, we are going to be using Iron Valiant in this deck. Now, unlike the old days of Iron Valiant with Entei, we don't have as many Switch cards in the format. Obviously, back then, you had Switch Card, Escape Rope, regular Switch, which we still have, and of course Jet Energy, which we still have. Obviously not for very long, same with Iron Valiant. But that does limit our options, but we are able to play Future Booster Energy Capsule in this list, which, to be fair, I think the Entei Iron Valiant decks used to play anyway. But this just makes it so that now we obviously still have access to our Iron Valiants, and of course we can use them to obviously attack and everything like that if we need to. You know, we can Wondrous Patch to this guy or just manually attach. The option's there. Of course, Laser Blade does only 200 damage, but obviously if we're moving stuff around with Tachyon bits, it can add up, and obviously that does benefit our Clefairy as well. I've also chucked in the Latias just so we have free retreat, just like what the old Entei Iron Valiant decks would love. And while having free retreat is just really nice to have, because we're playing mostly basics. The reason for mostly basics is I've had to chuck in a 2-2 line of the Mega Lopunny. Main reason for this is because A, it's a cheap attacker, so it's useful to have. B, it deals with Cornerstone, and C, it deals with Mimikyu/Crustle. So it's a pretty versatile attacker, and you know, we've established that this card is really good. And while we're playing Quad Jet Energy anyway, we'd be stupid to not play this card. Obviously, we already know this card's attack. Gale Thrust for 60 plus. If it moved from the bench to the active, it does 170 more. And then, of course, we have the option to Spiky Hopper where required, which is also good for wall breaking. And obviously it doesn't have an ability, all of our other attackers do, so it can deal the likes of Cornerstone for us. So we have a pretty versatile attacking fleet here, and obviously we do have Mew as a bit of extra draw, but obviously we can Wondrous Patch to the Mew if we have to, and copying a Pult would probably be on my to-do list for today, but it's probably not going to happen. So let's go to the deck list, and let's have a proper look. And welcome to the deck list. So I'll be honest, there's not like a lot to really change about this list. The main things that obviously you could add in, which I didn't end up adding in the end, but obviously you can do, is you can actually play a card called Lillie's Pearl. Now I haven't added any in, I've only added in the 2 Future Booster Energy Capsules and the 1 Bravery Charm. But that would mean that your Clefairy is a 1-prizer against damage from attacks. Now, specifically stating that is because you can play around it with Dusknoir plus Dragapult's Phantom Dive. So that is something to just bear in mind, your opponent can play around it. But the point is that this is a rather select, it's not a bad archetype at all. Obviously, having the Lopunny covering multiple bases is really nice, so we don't have to play a single prizer. Obviously, we do have the option to go in with Clefairy very early. We can even do it turn 1 if we manage to. Obviously, the Valiant pings with the 4 Switch and 4 Jet can be pretty useful. We also have Surfer in the list, which is quite an interesting card. I kind of like that card, but it's not very good. But it does help with the strategy of this deck. So of course we are playing 4 Lillie's Clefairy, 3 Iron Valiant, 2 Buneary, 2 Mega Lopunny, 1 Squawkabilly, 1 Bloodmoon Ursaluna EX, of course 1 Latias and 1 Mew. They're playing 4 Lilies for draw, 3 boss, 2 research, and 2 surfers. Obviously, we want to be getting psychic energy in the discard, so that's why there's a couple of research in here, and also 3 Ultra Ball. Then, of course, we've got 4 Switch, 4 Wondrous Patch, 4 Nest Ball, 3 Ultra Ball, 2 Night Stretcher, 1 Earthen Vessel, 1 Prime Catcher as our ace spec. It just felt like the best ace spec to use. 2 Future-based energy capsules, 1 Bravery Charm, 2 Mystery Garden, which just helps us get some draw in, because obviously we do have quite a lot of Psychic Pokemon in the deck, and obviously we are discarding Psychic Energy to use Wondrous Patch. Just felt like the best stadium for the job. And then, of course, Quad Jet Energy to both help with the Mega Lopunny, but also to go Wondrous Patch and into Clefairy immediately. So, like I said, there are a few things that I would change. Obviously, I would recommend running the Lily's Pearl. It would obviously affect your opponent's prize amount. Obviously, Entei Iron Valiant didn't really have that luxury, but Entei could obviously be quite bulky back then. Obviously, Entei was 230 base HP, and well, with a Bravery Charm, he's 280, which was pushing stage 1 territory of EX, which is really good for a basic that has no real bad weakness. You know, water weakness was not really relevant back then. And well, same applies to Clefairy. You know, metal energies, well, metal attackers don't really pop up all that much. And whilst Clefairy is a little bit spongier, it can obviously be improved with Bravery Charm, and of course you can play the likes of Lily's Pearl. My only other recommendation would be to obviously, you know, probably go up to 4 Ultra Ball would be my main thing. But like I said, if you can implement some Lily's Pearls in here, which you could very easily do, it's just I didn't see the need to, I've not really felt the need to, this archetype could be a potential sweeper. It won't be like meta. I think this is a rogue archetype by a country mile. Because, you know, we're not really having the highest amount of switch cards in the format. Like I said, we have Surfer, which can switch your active Pokemon, one of your bench Pokemon if you do draw cards to F5 in your hand. So you can go Surfer into the Valiant, ping with the Valiant, switch into another Valiant, and then have that one with a future booster to then free retreat into the Clefairy. So you're doing an extra 40 damage. But obviously we do have Jet Energy in this list, which also helps out with pivoting, and obviously we can Jet into a Valiant with a Future Booster if we have to, if we've already used our Retreat. But I think, you know, like, we could benefit from having some more switching cards in the format. Obviously Prime Catcher is technically a switch, and can be useful. And of course it does help with Mega Lopunny. I decided quite early on for Mega Lopunny to be in this list, and I think I've done an okay job with this list. Like I said, the Lily's Pearl would definitely be a replacement for the Bravery Charms. It's definitely something, or the Bravery Charm, I should say. Mystery Garden is definitely a stadium that is worth considering. Obviously, I'm just playing it because of the extra draw and the extra synergy and all that. But again, you don't have to play it if you don't want to. It's not. There's not really a bad answer to a stadium. As long as you have a stadium bump for, you know, most annoying stadiums in the format, you should be fine. Anyway, let's get into a match and see how we do. And welcome to the first match. So I'll just clear my throat then. So I've sounded a bit croaky throughout this video. I've had a cold for about 4 days now, so that was my Christmas gift. But I'm not particularly fussed, you know, like, it's one of those things, like, you know, it's just annoying, but like, once you're used to having a cold around Christmas time, which I normally get one around Christmas time for context, you just get used to it, I'll be brutally honest. And we're starting off with a Mully, which, I'll be honest, this doesn't reveal a lot. I mean, no Gardevoir player is playing Switch or Surfer, so I think we're okay. We're not revealing too much. But you'll notice I picked second there. We don't want to go. We don't want to go first, because obviously with the lack of Switch cards, and obviously we're not playing 4 Valiant, we're only playing 3. It can be pretty tricky to obviously get things going. And we're facing Dragapult. This should be okay for us. Obviously we have the Valiant pings to help soften them up. Obviously we would need 4 Valiants to take out a Dreepy, but spoiler alert, I'm not benching 4. I'm not benching 4, let's put it that way. They've started out with a Nest Ball, getting a Dreepy, and they've started the Latias, which is good for us, but this hand isn't particularly something I want right now. So I will switch into a Valiant, and I'm actually going to pick the Latias, make my job a little bit easier later. Now, do I Squawk before Lilies? I think I'd Lilies foot, but then again, I'm going to lose first, because then we can Squawk. After we burn some cards out. And that's not bad, actually. So we'll go Nest Ball, grab ourselves a Latias. Then we can Ultra Ball away you and you. Grab ourselves a Buneary, because Buneary is going to be useful in this matchup. Although I would like Mew, but I don't think I need Mew. So I'm going to grab Buneary, because it's a big 3-prizer, can obviously do a lot of work. We can do that. And then I will Squawk and Seize. Ooh, that's annoying, but we can free retreat into the Valiant. And we can put that there as well, so we can get a free ping in. And again, I'm going to ping the Latias to play around my opponent, and we will just pass. Not a bad start, that isn't. So we've got the Latias down to 170 HP, so obviously considering Clefairy's damage, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180. So my opponent's actually misplayed putting that down. So now we can free retreat into the Clefairy, Night Stretcher back that Psychic, and swing with Clefairy. They're using Boss, but I have Latias in play, so I don't know what the reasoning is for that, but I guess they've never read Latias before, but they're using it, I don't know. Right, so we'll guarantee it with the Night Stretcher. Obviously, we will be potentially, you know, causing us issues if we do whiff on anything, which is why I'm not taking the risk. That's actually pretty good. Ooh, actually, no. We can switch into this Valiant. Well, no, it'd be this Valiant we want, and then we can free retreat back into Clefairy and get a free ping on this Duskull. I mean, to be fair, like, I don't want to use Prime. So yeah, we'll switch into this Valiant. We'll get a free ping. In fact, I don't want to ping the Duskull. I'm going to ping one of the Dreepies. And then we can free retreat into the Clefairy and hit Full Moon Rondo for 180, take out the Latias. I'm not sure why they wasted a boss there. Maybe they're trying to like thin their hand out or something, but no, that was not the play there, my friend. There's the Dreepy. Now, the only way he attacks is if he has Rare Candy, Rare Candy, Dragapult, Neo Upper in hand. There's the Clops, that's why I didn't bother pinging it. At least I'm putting pressure on these guys. But no, this isn't too bad so far. Obviously, we can go Valiant and stuff like that. We can actually prime the Latias. Countercatcher, you've clearly not learned your lesson. I don't know why they're gusting the Buneary, because I just free retreat. Losing the prime and the boss here kind of sucks, but I can deal with it. There's another boss, at the very least. Now, if we top deck, if we manage to find energy, that'd be pretty nice, because then I can get one on the Buneary. Is he going for an item lock? Because if so, that could benefit us. He is going for an item lock. My opponent's making some really questionable plays. So you'll notice as well, I've not been on the ladder. I'm still at 230 Guardy rank. I've literally just been... Oh, and I love this new effect of Bidoo, by the way, the little pollen effect. I kind of like it, which is ironic because I do suffer with hay fever. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to research here, but then again, I can just go... Now that I've got multiple... Now he's got his entire bench full, I could just go Clefairy into the Latias, which would hurt us with Iono, but I'm prepared to take that risk. So I'm just going to free retreat into the Clefairy. I'm going to boss the Latias. And Full Moon Rondo, 220, take 2 prizes. Obviously, we could use Valiant later to start pinging stuff, so that's something we can do. There's one of our Lopunnies at the prizes. Yeah, we get the point. My Nest Ball's allergic to Bidoo. But no, I do like the little effects that they're doing. It's quite nice, you know. Like, it adds a bit more, you know. Like, it doesn't just say, hey, you know, I'm using an effect, you know. Like, there's an actual thing. It's like that, was it a club? No, it was that grapple locked a while back where it had like that ticking time thing. You know, like I like the fact that they're adding these effects, but obviously with the amount of bugs that still are relevant in this game, you know. So there's an Iono, that's fine. Mystery Garden's pretty good. It's interesting though that they keep using Countercatcher, that like they think I can't retreat. Like all my Pokemon, bar the Mega Lopunny, are basics, and even then, Mega Lopunny has a singular retreat cost. So I'm not sure what my opponent is trying to gain out of this, but, you know, I don't have to work particularly hard to get myself this win. Obviously, we will be getting item locked, which is a problem, but I can deal with that. There's another Poffin. Probably going to grab another Dust Skull, I'd imagine. Nope, that's a fail. We did take out the Latias again, so that's at least something. Again, why are you doing this? I know you, like, try to stop me from getting Valiant math and stuff, but I don't see what you're doing here. I don't get it. You know, is this something I don't know? Well, that's not a great top deck, but we can at least put it down, I guess. So we'll just free retreat back into the Clefairy. And we'll just form a Rondo, take out the Badoo. Go down to 1. Not bad at all. This deck also doesn't really require price checking. That's the nice thing about it. Because there's not much to it. You just make sure you don't prize, like, all of your Wondrous Patches, which, so far, we haven't prized any, so that's good. He's got the Neo Upper. He's going for the Lilies, so he still gets 8. That's not bad at all. But yeah, I've been quite croaky throughout Christmas. I've not really felt too well, but, you know, like, I feel fine. It's just a case of, you know, like, it's that time of year where I just feel terrible. Is the politest way I can put it, you know. Ultra Ball for a Dragapult? What are you planning? Do you have Fez in the deck? Because if you don't, that feels kind of bad, because you don't really want to be throwing away. And there's the Fez, at the very least. Obviously, we have the option to Bloodmoon in the late game as well. That is something to consider. And obviously, he's Lillie, so he hasn't hand disrupted us, although our hand's not doing a huge amount, I will say. We can at least bump the Stadium, which is a nice thing, and we can get draw with it, so we do have that option. And there's your Cloak. Not bad at all. Is my opponent seriously, like, full committing to this play? If you do not retreat this Dreepy, you're donezo, my friend. The only thing my opponent can realistically do is put Fez in front of me, because Fez is as tough as Pokemon right now. I would need to hit quite a bit off of a Mystery Garden draw to actually do it, and I can't thin this hand down very much. I think they definitely missed getting rid of that Pole, the one that they just chucked away. They shouldn't have done that. But yeah, I've also put a bit of weight on during Christmas, as I'm sure we all have. I hope you all had a good, you know, Christmas and everything, and a nice New Year. And, well, he just passes, so I'm not going to waste his time. I'm just going to full move Rondo for 400 damage on the poor Dreepy, and take game. Against arguably one of our easier matchups, I'll be honest. Like, you know, Port can get a bit messy, but, you know, we can most definitely just slap them back to existence. And, well, that's the end of that. Let's go to a game 2. And welcome back. That went pretty smoothly for us, you know. Like, we had a pretty good start, and we just kept up the pressure of Clefairy. We didn't even have to use a Wondrous Patch in that game. Not really sure what my opponent was doing, though. Like, they made a lot of questionable decisions. Like, they seem to want to take out the Buneary, which is odd, because Buneary only gets me so much in that matchup. You know, like, it can go for Fez, it can go for, you know, like, Latias and things like that. But their insistence on putting down 2 prizes just didn't feel right to me. I don't know if that's just me, but it just didn't feel right. So we'll start the Latias, at least it's a bit bulkier than some of our other basics. Battlecade Superior, so we're probably facing Dengo, which Dengo's pretty rough because, well, Clefairy is metal weak. We will take that mulligan though, but that mulligan is useless, and yep, it is the worst matchup we can possibly ask for. So I'm not going to put that down, I'm just going to put down 2 Clefairies and pass. This is where, like, Mega Lopunny can potentially do some work, but it would need 2 Valiant pings, and as we've already established, it's quite tough to do that because we don't have as many Switch cards in the format. However, you are playing 50 HP Gimmicools, which could benefit us, but that would mean I have to play 3 Valiants down, and I really don't want to do that, because for those that also don't know, Valiant is also metal weak. I forgot to mention it in the intro part, but yeah, Valiant is also metal weak, so this is I'm going to say auto loss, because unless we start pinging these bad boys really early and start taking multi-prize turns, we're not winning this one, Chief. That's for sure. I mean, I'm not going to just give up without a fight, you know. I'm going to at least try it, but, you know, I don't want to give them extra draw off a Mystery Garden, because obviously they can get their hand size down. And it looks like they're just going to go for a Cosmic Beam for 70, which is fine by me. There's a Fighting Gong. I'm grabbing another energy for next turn. Fair enough. You know, you got to keep that engine running, I guess. And there's the Cosmic Beam for 70. That's fine by me. And that is a horrible, horrible draw. Let's just go for Lillies. And we still whiff. Oh my lord. We still whiff on that. I can't thin my hand down to Mystery Garden neither, which is the worst part. So I'm just going to put out another Clefairy. I'll just attach the fresh Clefairy and pass. I literally can't do anything. This just feels so rough. I mean, like I said, we're facing a metal Pokemon which, you know, hits us for weakness and only needs to discard 2. And most importantly, our, shall we say, backup pseudo-attacker, so to speak, with the pinging. That's also metal weak, so yeah, we are not winning this game, especially with this slow start. You know, we've whiffed on discard, we've whiffed on a lot of things. And obviously I don't really want to research this hand away. I'd rather Lillies it, because obviously these resources can be used later. Like the Night Stretcher, the Wondrous Patch, the Double Surfer could obviously be relevant. Yeah, I don't really want to use that. I noticed that, was it Jake Gearhart? He did that formula which basically said, hey, if you do this and that and this and that, like calculating how many cards you have left in deck and what you get off of Lillies, it's better to Lillies or better to Iono, stuff like that. Yeah, that is something that you could consider, but, well, I'm not going to be figuring out math when, you know, Prime Catcher. That probably means they have Dengo in hand, which is horrible for me. Because another thing as well is we can't take out a Dengo unless we double ping up Valiant. So, fun. I'm not really sure what my opponent's doing here, though. They are taking a bit of time with their actions. I mean, you can just Cosmic Beam for 70, and then you only need to discard 2 with the... In fact, no, it's 2. You can discard 2 with that. Interesting to play in Battle Cage, though. That's an interesting tech, I will say. And there's the damage with the Solrock. Yeah, if my hand keeps bricking, which that does help, but not right now. If my hand keeps bricking, which it continues to do so, there's not really going to be a lot for us to do right now. Well, I can get a Valiant down, I guess. I mean, that's something. But yeah, this hand is shocking, is all I'll say. I can't really thin, that's the problem. And, like I said, Lopunny doesn't really solve anything. I'm just whiffing so hard on, like, basic stuff, you know, I can't really do anything. So yeah, I'm just going to go to a game 3. Well, as I always say, PTCG Live can giveth, but also taketh. We beat a matchup which we hit weakness for, but then we immediately face a matchup that we are hit for weakness for. It's just PTCG Live being PTCG Live now, isn't it? I actually had a guy leave a negative comment on my Mega Lopunny with Poison video. In that video, I was observant to like my opponent's like board state and their resource management, and I was just saying like how poor their research, or like their resource management actually was. And for some reason, he thinks I had like, you know, I was trash talking him. That was not the intention. The intention was to just, you know, say, hey, you're wasting resources. You don't need to do this. You know, I'm glad I'm not starting Bloodmoon because I don't have a way to get the Bloodmoon at the active. Well, I do, but it involves Jet Energy and Latias, which I'd rather not do. Chen Pao in this economy? I mean, we do have to work pretty hard to take one out if they don't put a lot of the bench Pokemon down, but it's definitely doable. It is doable, but it's just going to be a little bit harder. Also, Mega Lopunny is actually pretty good in this matchup because it does require a lot of resource management from them. So, that's definitely something. I remember a guy pulling this art back in the day. Nice card. It really is. Alright, let's Nest Ball. We'll grab ourselves the Squawk. I'm actually going to put the charm on the Squawk because it does actually matter. Also, Bloodmoon is going to be MVP later in the game, but... Well, sorry mate, you've got to go to the discard pile for now. Okay, we whiff on the Clefairy, but we do at least get the... Well, when I say we whiff on the Clefairy, we don't. But we do get to thin some Psychic Energy out the deck. So, I'm going to get rid of you. I'm just going to get rid of double Psychic, I think, and just grab a Clefairy. Now, do I retreat into Buneary? I could. I can also Mystery Garden for 2, which could matter. But then again, if I just give them the 2-prizer, I can respond on this with a 3-prizer and just hope they don't have enough resources, which this early on is kind of a risk. I think it's correct to just pass here, because if I give them the Buneary, I know for a fact this list will play Prime. It's very unlikely that they wouldn't. Ultra Ball and TM Evo. I mean, to be fair, they can obviously only do 120 right now. They haven't got a Frigibax established. Also, the different energy type, like, the different energies are triggering my OCD. You know, like, he's got... Fair enough, these are exactly the same, but... Hold on, was that the 60 HP? Ooh, that could be something we utilise. Oh, I don't like the use of Superior here, though. No, I don't agree with that. Why don't you just air balloon into the other one and get more energy out the deck? You don't have to hit for 120 here. I don't know, I don't think my opponent's doing this correctly. And you're only grabbing back the 1? Ugh. Oh, okay, you're just going to concede. I mean, I had Jet Lopunny, so... You know, my opponent definitely made some questionable actions there. Let's go to a game 4. Back to game 4. That was interesting to see my opponent do that questionable play with a Superior. Like I say, you don't really want to use Superior. Like, Chien-Pao is one of those decks that you don't want to burn your resources too early. It's a bit like Dengo. You don't want to burn Dengo resources too early. And, well, he clearly didn't get that message, but, well, it's fine. And we'll go second as established. This deck does like to go second, but it just feels like we're whiffing on the Wondrous Patches today. Like, we've not really seen much. And, well, with this starting hand, we need a miracle. Monkey Dory, that's fine. Nest Ball for Squawk would be beautiful right now. Let's put it that way. Why do I get the feeling I recognise that username from somewhere? I probably do, but... Well, this is me on about. I'm very forgetful. And it's Dragazard. Okay, this is interesting. The Zard is actually the hard part of this, believe it or not. The pull is the easy part, but the Zard, not so much. That's quite hard to deal with in this list. Because obviously he could just bully all of our 2-prizes, because the moment we take 2 prizes, he's taking out Valiants, and we take 1 prize, he takes out Clefairies. And with Charm, it's still 2, so yeah. And there's the pass. Let's see what we top deck. Okay, sure, you just concede and give me the victory, even though my hand was completely dead. You know what? We'll take it. But yeah, that went pretty okay. I mean, obviously we did brick in that last game there, and well, we didn't really get established in game 2, was it? But yeah, obviously this deck does have a few things to work out, I think, and I think the Lopunny package does definitely help with that. Because obviously it's a cheaper attacker, you know, it's quite easy to set it up. Obviously we're playing Quad Nest, so you can easily get it out. 73 Ultra Ball and stuff like that. But yeah, that went pretty okay, you know, like we had technically 3 wins, although 2 of them we definitely didn't earn, but, you know, we'll take it. So, what did I think to the deck? This deck is actually pretty fun, you know, I think the Mega Lopunny package that I decided quite early on was a good idea. Obviously, Mega Lopunny EX does give us a lot of extra avenues, which just makes the most sense to me, and to be honest, I think it was a good idea to include it, obviously with the Quad Jet and stuff like that. Otherwise, I don't think a lot needs to change about this list, you know, like, as I said, Lillie's Pearl will probably go pretty hard in this list. Mystery Garden didn't really pull much weight, but, you know, like, it could, so I would recommend running, Mystery Garden as your stadium. Other than that, I just feel like this deck's a little bit too slow. You know, at least with Entei Iron Valiant, it had a stadium, which obviously did the effect. And obviously stadium bumps were reasonably relevant back then. You know, like we had Path to the Peak and things like that. But you know, like, oh, and also Lost City. Can't forget Lost City. That card was a pain. That was a pain in my butt. Let's put it that way. But no, I think this deck is just a little bit too slow. The lack of switch cards, and obviously, you know, Valiant not having as much in terms of, like, you know, resource and stuff like that. You know, like, I don't see myself using Valiant, like, as much as I think you would. There is actually a Iron Valiant 2 version that I'm working on. So, like, you may remember I did a Future Box deck of Iron Valiant to obviously, you know, cover G-Block Pokemon. I am working on a version 2 of that. It is getting there, but it's not quite ready for a video yet. But no, I've enjoyed my time with this deck. I just think it's a little bit too slow. If we had more switch cards in the format, which, spoiler alert, there isn't any coming from what I saw, I think this whole Iron Valiant pinging strategy, obviously with rotation it's going to die anyway, but I just think with the loss of Escape Rope and Switch Card, it can get very tricky to get this sort of archetype working. But at least Clefairy got to do quite a bit, obviously, in this video. But obviously, we did get to use the Mega Lopunny once, which kind of a shame. But to be fair, I would have just gone Jet Lopunny with that Gem PAL player, but because that was pretty much my only line. And if I top deck a Psychic Energy so I can get some draw, that'd be pretty nice. But obviously, we didn't know our top deck because the opponent conceded. But no, I'm going to leave it all there for today. I really hope you enjoyed seeing this Clefairy Iron Valiant deck I've been working on. Like I said, I do recommend the Lillie's Pearl as a tool. But ultimately, I do think this deck falls short in a few areas to actually matter. Anywho, I will see you next time.